Quick disclaimer before this video begins, I apologize if I sound a little sick. I just came back from a 2-week-long California road trip, which I'll talk more about in a future announcement video. But it did do a pretty big toll on my body, and I'm pretty beat up, so bear with me here. At the time I'm writing this script, I think I might be one of the only roller coaster enthusiasts out there who have had the chance to ride all 5 of the newest SeaWorld Entertainment roller coaster installations. For simplicity's sake, I'll be calling these the new for 2020 coasters because for those of you who don't know, these editions were all planned to open in 2020. That said, all but one were postponed due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Not just by a year, but by 2 years. The one that did open would have been postponed too had it not been ahead of schedule when it opened on February 22nd, 2020. Now, although we do have the right to be frustrated at SeaWorld for delaying these a whole year without any communication whatsoever, 2 years, I do feel for them quite a bit anyways. When you spend this much money for big new rides across the entire chain, it does suck not to get that return on investment you're aiming for. Though to be fair, 2022 has brought a major rebound in attendance across the SeaWorld park, so it looks like the loss on their end wasn't as bad as anticipated. A quick refresh if you can't remember, the big 5 coasters are Iron Gwazi at Busch Gardens Tampa, Icebreaker at SeaWorld Orlando, Pantheon at Busch Gardens Williamsburg, Emperor at SeaWorld San Diego, and Texas Stingray at SeaWorld San Antonio. These are my honest thoughts on all 5 and how I rank them up against each other. Do note that spots 5 to 3 are quite interchangeable, and spots 2 and 1 are closer than anticipated as well. That's why some of these rankings could come as a surprise, starting with our number 5 spot. The tamest of the new SeaWorld attractions in my opinion is Icebreaker at SeaWorld Orlando. Now I do say this with a grain of salt, as I think Icebreaker turned out to be quite a bit more intense than many of us expected. While I would categorize it as a family-friendly roller coaster, the airtime can be quite intense if you aren't expecting. The first half of this ride consists of a seesaw-like swing launch where you pass through the same section of track 4 times. The best part of the sequence are the bunny hills on either side of the launch that give progressively stronger airtime as you gain momentum. Then in the second half, once you clear the ride's signature top hat element, the rest of the experience is loaded with quick airtime hills and funky banking on the turns. My biggest gripe with Icebreaker are the trains, as I tend to really dislike Premier Rides vehicles. These are very tight with pointless over-the-shoulder comfort collar restraints. Having ridden many Premier Rides coasters with just a lap bar, I struggle to understand why the older design couldn't feature on Icebreaker. Had that been the case, I might have been willing to put this ride a bit higher on this list. That said, the layout and elements are fun the whole way through, and that's why it's still one of my favorite coasters Premier Rides has ever done. Heading over to my home park, number 4 is Emperor at SeaWorld San Diego. If you ask where I thought this would rank, I would have guessed it to be at the bottom spot. My 2 cents is that B&M dive coasters, while fun, are usually pretty generic, and the restraints on the manufacturer's newer installations have restricted quite a lot of the forces you'd go to anticipate. It's for that reason that my expectations for Emperor weren't quite as high as some of these other rides on this list. But I do have to say I was taken quite a bit by surprise. It may not be the most intense ride in the world, even by B&M standards, but what it does offer is above average for the dive coaster genre. This one seems to focus more on inversions than drops, which has been a reoccurring theme on newer and similar dive coasters like Yukon Striker at Canada's Wonderland. The main difference is that Emperor is a whole lot smaller than the others, and while I thought this could be a potential weakness, it actually made for whippier elements and stronger pacing. Dare I say, every element from that drop to the final breaks is just about perfect for what I could have imagined. My only real complaint would be the obnoxiously tight vest restraints and lack of theming, but layout-wise, Emperor was a great addition to this park. A ride that's sort of been left in the dust with all these other rides opening is number 3 on my list, which is Texas Stingray at SeaWorld San Antonio. While I can't say this coaster does anything especially unique, it did fulfill my wishes as a genuinely fun and solid wooden roller coaster. The layout is made up of what I'd consider to be 2 distinct halves. The first one is made up of larger hills with turns leading into or out of them. Then the second lays low to the ground and keeps great pacing until the end of the ride. In a weird way, it's kind of the GCI equivalent to the layout found on Steel Vengeance at Cedar Point. Obviously, it doesn't rank anywhere close to Steel Vengeance, but I do acknowledge the vastly different elements that round out a very solid coaster. If I had to rank it amongst other GCIs, I'd probably put it somewhere in the middle, which considering how good their rides have become, that's not a bad feat at all. Besides, it was able to overtake Emperor and Icebreaker, so it has to be worth something here. A huge jump up into my top 10 overall roller coasters list is number 2, Pantheon at Busch Gardens Williamsburg. I can't stress enough how much better Pantheon was relative to my expectations. I'll be honest, I was expecting some elements to be taken with too little speed, but I was completely wrong. That said, I entirely take the blame for that. I should have never underestimated Intamin. After all, these were the same people that just did Velocicoaster a year prior. If I had to sum up this ride, I'd say it's kind of like Velocicoaster at Islands of Adventure and Icebreaker if you put those two together, and yeah, that's basically Pantheon. It has a similar swing launch section to Icebreaker, incorporating airtime with a spike and top hat on either side, but then it also tracks quite similar to Velocicoaster given that it's a newer Intamin with the next generation track and trains. What I wasn't expecting was just how complete the layout would be. The first few elements start off slow and get you pumped up for the crazy that's up and coming, but once you hit that launch section, the airtime you'll experience is literally no joke, some of the strongest in the world, I'd argue. But in my opinion, the thing that left me speechless was that all of of the elements that I thought would be taken with too little speed were actually just right. The top hat, the outer bank, the stall, and the switchbacks were all absolutely phenomenal elements. Pantheon is a world-class roller coaster and ranks closer to 1 on this list than I could have ever imagined. But could I have actually put it higher? No, I just can't. Iron Gwazi at Busch Gardens Tampa is too good to be true. It's the 3rd hyper-hybrid coaster Rocky Mountain Construction's ever built, and arguably the most intense of the bunch. The pacing on this ride is astronomically impressive, and the elements were perfectly well done. Iron Gwazi was undeniably the most anticipated new ride opening this year, meaning by nature it was also the delayed SeaWorld attraction that spited everyone the most. But I think all of what we waited was worth it because RMC once again built a coaster that can contend to be one of the greatest rides on the planet. Iron Gwazi is a masterpiece, and I'd highly recommend all of you watching to get out and ride it soon. With that being said, those were the new for 2020 SeaWorld 2022 ranked from worst to best. To be honest, I really enjoyed all of these attractions, and I found this very difficult to rank. I'm quite pleased with the chain's decisions as to what rides could fit their parks the most. In my opinion, they absolutely killed it with all 5 of these installations. I can't wait to see what the future of these parks hold, as I'm pretty sure this won't be the last time we see the SeaWorld chain do something similar. If you enjoyed this video, I'd really appreciate it if you could leave a like and subscribe, as it really helps out the YouTube algorithm. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you very soon. Bye guys.